Boat Project. This is episode 4. I'm Mike Robertson, along with Mike Taylor. I'm your captain for this week. Think of it as Stu being on vacation, which we really haven't gotten to yet. I assume that these guys do get vacation, but that's a whole nother conversation. I'm very excited. I'm generally not excited about this episode, but I'm very excited that a long-standing concern that we've had throughout the history of this long-running show was addressed. And I think we'll get to that. But they definitely are listening. Somehow, 40 years in the past, they are listening to our concerns and addressing them. But anyway, before we get into that, the titles for this week's triumvirate of plot lines, if you can call them that: Message for Maureen, Gotcha, and Acapulco Connection. And I will say, probably the most descriptive and accurate titles that we've had of any of these. Like, there's no no vagaries,
like literal. No, we're not gonna obscure this storyline at all. We're just gonna. This is literal episode.
Remember, 1 week I wasn't even sure which was which. There's no questions here. Like, that was
the Sausage King. We thought it was like that delicious. This one is very very.
And it kind of goes with what I think the whole conceit of this week's episode is they didn't have a lot of time for this. It was just kind of like thrown together.
Immigration.
The plot summary: tennis pro Maureen Mitchell runs into sports writer John Ballard, who defamed her in his column. Cyril Wolf annoys his wife Anita and fellow passengers with constant practical jokes.
What a jerk that guy is.
Yeah. And then Mexican April Lopez stows away in a laundry hamper, which really undersold the plot line there. But that was... So we finally got our stowaway story.
We got our stowaway story, which is great.
And really highlighted all the pitfalls of boat stowaway as far as if you're a cruise liner.
Well, another interesting thing is on the guest stars this week, we talked about Ballard, Mitchell. So they list Lynn Adams and Britt Leach as Martha Dickerson and Reverend Dickerson.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what the Mendoza line is to be a guest star, like how many lines you have to have. Look, the Dickersons, Reverend and Mrs., they had such a small role. And I've seen that Britt Leach guy a bunch of times, like in some other movies, but I don't know what movies. But I just didn't understand, like, they were really extras with like 4 lines. I don't know why they considered them guest stars.
I noticed that too, because besides the Dickersons, the only other person with a speaking line was the housekeeper.
Which Tony, the housekeeper.
Who ends up being an actual person. The housekeeper is, I have it somewhere in the notes, but she was on like 40 episodes of Green Acres. Like, she was an actual recurring character in Green Acres. And so she gets a couple zingers in there or whatever, but then that's it. And I thought, oh, okay, well, she's going to show up. Never shows up on Love Boat again.
Yeah, that's
it was a weird short bench, because I think 5 is the lowest amount of guest stars we've ever had in the credits.
Yeah, definitely.
And to your point, the Dickersons talked, I guess. They didn't even talk as much as that couple that set up Jacqueline Smith with what's his name?
Well, the thing was too, the other strange thing is that Reverend Dickerson was dressed as Reverend Dickerson in every single, no matter how many days, he was still like all revved up. So I don't know if is that what you wear? If you're a reverend and you go on vacation, do you still dress like a reverend, or do you have like non-reverend clothes?
I feel like you always see a reverend in TV.
Yeah. Like on the beach, in the beach.
Yeah, like I think you see like the collar and shorts and stuff like that. But yeah, he I wonder if he packs like do you remember the Pac-Man video game, or not the video game, but the cartoon? Pac-Man cartoon. Yeah. And then whenever they would get eaten, they'd open up the closet and it would just be another suit of the exact same thing. I feel like that's what Reverend Dickerson's. He just like packed 8 collars or something.
Fred Flintstone has the same outfit 27 times in his closet.
Yeah. So his closet is just black shirt, black slacks, that sweater. Again, weird. I know boats get cold, but everybody's dressing for like late November.
They're in the Pacific. They're going to Mexico, like a tropical destination, and there's sweaters involved and layered dark colors. It just didn't. It didn't
Julie
make any
really
sense.
has like Julie has like 40 outfits in this one. She's
got like the turtle and the thing, and well, don't forget the short jacket made another appearance by the captain.
At this point now, first of all, I feel like the captain's dinner itself can just be its own show. But yeah, the short jacket is part of that. It really has taken on a life of its own so far.
Well, I will say this episode, there was not a scene showing the captain's dinner. I think this is the first episode. There was a reference in the very beginning, like, "Oh, welcome to the boat. I'll see you at dinner." And like, "Oh, how do you?" It's a low bar to get invited to the captain's dinner.
Well, everybody in the so two of the three. Well, yeah, because I guess April wouldn't have been invited because she wasn't a guest. So everybody that was an official guest on the boat got to the captain's dinner.
Boy, he's just doing dinner for 48 hours. How do you get that? Remember, the captain's table is not that big. Boy, girl, boy, girl. What is he doing? He eats like 17 dinners a day to get thousands of passengers.
The further we go without Steubing steering wheel shots in this thing, I'm getting curious what he's doing, because he has way too much time to participate in the cruise show. And what's like that housekeeper, I guess they show up first for the captain's thing, but like he's still in the room when she shows up. Like,
you're talking about Tony, the cleaning lady?
Oh,
I noticed her name on there.
I didn't notice her name.
This whole time we've been watching it, we made the comment earlier, like, these are the only crew members we're going to talk about. Like, you know what I mean? It takes a village, but apparently not on this boat. It takes 5 people. And one of them is a bartender.
I will say early on, they're lousy with crew members, but then they all go away. So I feel like all the crew members help until the boat leaves the shore. And then they all just jump off, I guess, or something, like, because you never see them again.
There's no work
when they're getting the wheelchair Marine in. There's like 9 people helping her up. Where are those people when I need a drink?
Yeah, it is true. It is kind of funny. There's a lack of consistency, like as far as like loading procedures. You know what I mean? Like all these different things are just, there's no like general rule. Like, okay, we know they're going to come on. It was well, if we're going to talk about the wheelchair thing, I want to say 1 second. She was like, "Hurry it up, gopher. You know, I can go faster." And then she stops and she's like, "I got it."
We'll get to it. I have so many questions about everything involving what landed her in that wheelchair and their absolute refusal to at least give me one sentence to explain it.
I have an idea. We'll get to that. All right.
So this originally aired on October 15th, 1977 at 10 p.m. on ABC.
ABC.
Would you like to know what else was on that night?
I would. You know what? I would actually love to know what it went up against.
So on CBS that night at 10 o'clock, the Carol Burnett Show, which I don't know if that's at the end of the Carol Burnett Show run.
The Love Boat was on at 10 p.m.?
Yeah, 10 p.m.
That's
it has to be. You know, it was on before it?
Fantasy Island.
Starsky and
Hutch. I love that show.
They were solving a murder this week. I think that's every week.
What a weird segue. Like, we've wrapped this up, Huggy Bear, love. You know what I mean? It's
You probably had to have it at 10 o'clock, right? Love Boat had to be at 10 o'clock because it is risque. I mean, last week was very risque. This week, not as much. But
not as much. Well, Adam Bricker. You know what I mean?
Listen, I got some flowers for Doc this week. I thought he was a real mensch this week relative to prior things. But
so what did you say was on CBS against?
CBS was Carol Burnett. NBC was showing a movie.
Okay. What night of the week was this again? This was Saturday? Okay.
Saturday night. NBC showed Something Big, which frankly now I want to watch this movie. A ragtag band of desperados who engage in a round robin of wheeling and dealing involving gold, jewels, a Gatling gun, wives, and fiancés.
What is this, a Louis L'Amour comedy special? What's going on here?
Dean Martin in it.
Oh, wow.
I think we're going to have to do like a breakout and watch that movie.
We might have to, you know what I mean? Special edition, you know.
The interesting thing about that being a movie that night is NBC during the day showed Game 4 of the 1977 World Series, which was an afternoon game.
Wait, that was Yankees
Dodgers.
Okay.
So this is Game 4. The Yankees won. That's the same series that Reggie Jackson would eventually hit 3 home runs in the final game. But they had afternoon games on Saturday and Sunday, which which is
I'll
cool.
tell you, I love any sort of like midday postseason game.
Yeah.
You give me NBA baseball, I feel like that's a lost. You know what I mean? Like after I used to love NBA playoff games on the afternoon, Sunday afternoon, Saturday afternoon. Same thing with baseball. We just don't. How funny is that's during the day, but then Love Boat's at night versus nowadays, a much bigger like revenue maker via ads would have to be the baseball. So would they put the Love Boat on?
Love Boat at 4:00?
Like 4:00. Yeah.
Well, there had been a groundswell a few years ago to have game 4 of the World Series every year, because that would be the Saturday. Have that be the afternoon.
It should.
And it really should be. It would just be such a neat thing, and you can get kids and all that stuff. I mean with the pace of play, I guess it doesn't matter now, but
I mean, started at 4, so, to kind of appease, you know what I mean? Like, okay, it's a little later in the day. At least it's 1:00 Western, Pacific time zone, but it's a lost thing. It's interesting.
The other thing that was on Channel 29, local Philly viewers got to watch the Flyers and the Penguins. And the Flyers won 8-2. They killed the Penguins, who were terrible at the time.
I feel like that's the last time the Flyers won. It hurts.
Bobby Clark, goal 4 assists. So, way to go, Flyers. So that's what was on. It's funny when you look it up, at least because I looked at the Inquirer archive to see what was on, and they just have the little box because it's like
there's
3,
not
6,
much
10, Channel 12, and then the 3 UHF stations. That's it. There's nothing else.
It's funny because I was looking at old TV guides. I was like, because I wanted to see synopsis to kind of gives you a list just to get an idea of like what time it was on, when it shifted, what was, that kind of thing. They charge a decent amount of money to get a TV guide, like archive subscription to pull it up. Like it's not free. Like I was looking going, oh, what was on? And they were like, in order to blah, 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 blah. I was just shocked. I'm like, why would you?
As longtime followers of my Twitter account know, I get a lot of money out of my $6.95 Inquirer archive subscription. But I would not pay. How far does that go back? I would 1800s.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I would not pay for I would not pay for a TV guide subscription.
No,
archive.
I'm not paying for that. You're crazy. Like we'll find a way around that.
So as we said, only 5 credited stars. Wanted to give a shout out to one of our listeners who let us know that season 2 will be when the porthole guest shots start. So I guess we're just in it with the names for this first season, which is disappointing because I do think, as we've said before, it does kind of give you a sense of who these people are. Now, honestly, this was a cast where I knew everybody except one person. So by name, which I don't think has happened so far. So it was easy to identify. But we have Brenda Benet and Bill Bixby, who were married in real life. That's our second time we've had a real life couple. And
don't get them mad.
similar vibe in terms of the show. They were kind of like, they eventually end up together, but there was some star-cross. They did implement, I don't know if you noticed, it wasn't as bad as the Jacqueline Smith one, but they did implement the long pause to connotate love or awkwardness in a couple of versions. Yeah,
love tension break, whatever you call it.
Apparently is a thing. That's a choice that they've made.
Well, it was on at 10. That's a risque thing. Like, whoa.
I don't want to get too deep into it because it's really not a pleasant end, but Bill Bixby and Brenda Benet were married. They had a kid. They got divorced in the late 70s, 79, and then their child died. Child died in a tragic accident a couple years after they had separated, and Brenda Benet killed herself the next year.
Oh my God.
And so it's really sad. It's a sad end because she had apparently been an actress and then kind of retired, semi-retired, to help raise the family. So really sad. She died very young.
Well, she was dealing with all that. She was dealing with all that back pain.
She was
That's
really
probably
good
what drove her to the point.
She was really good in this in a weird role, man. Like just weird.
It was a weird role.
They just never fully committed to why she was in the chair or explain the operation.
Oh, so many questions.
Interesting thing with Bixby, and we've kind of talked about this in terms of timing. The Incredible Hulk would debut less than a month from now.
It's that old. So wait, what channel was that? Was that CBS?
I meant to check, and I'm not sure. I'm trying to think. It would make sense, right? That it would be ABC, but not necessarily. Yeah. But yeah, so this is pre-Incredible Hulk. Unless they did movies but I don't think they did TV movies first.
Well, they did TV movies later. They did like the trial of the Incredible Hulk later. I guess my question is, as far as Bill Bixby goes, like during this episode, right? What level of a star was he going into this before Incredible Hulk?
I think he had been like on that wheel of 70s things like everybody else had, right? If you look at these IMDb credits for some of these people, they're in everything, but they're in everything for one episode or two episodes. I don't know that he had like a major starring role. But that's what makes me think Incredible Hulk might have been on ABC and that they were loading up.
Yeah.
I think to get his wife on there, that almost feels like a bit of a
bit of a hookup. You know what I mean? Like, hey, come on, you can have. Like, I think
because
this is the same thing with the Jacqueline Smith thing too. Maybe that was a way to get people on. Was, hey, we can have your wife on. You know what I mean? That's a weird thing, but maybe.
And it's like, especially so far, the two couples we've seen, I think it's fair to say, even though we're saying Bixby maybe wasn't the star he would become,
right?
He's working while she's retired. You know, obviously with Dennis Kingston and Jacqueline Smith, the star level was not close.
Well, Jacqueline Smith alone just raises that bar. Right. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think they're going to have two like pedestrian character actors that are married doing that. You know, there has to be like a real disparity.
Someone's got to spike. There's got to be right.
Neither of them would ever appear on Love Boat again.
Interesting.
Which probably indicates Bixby's star level after this.
Well, I wonder, was he like, I was just Bill Bixby, right? And it's weird because obviously I remember from the Hulk. I remember him from some news sitcom after the Hulk. I can't remember the name of it. But I guess, like, I can't imagine Bill Bixby was winning some Emmys playing Dr. David Banner. By the way, so the network didn't like the name Bruce Banner, right? Which is the Hulk's real name. So they did a thing where they're like, no, we can't have matching first names.
Oh, they didn't like alliteration?
So, no. Had to be David Banner. Couldn't be Bruce Banner. It was a whole thing. But I'm just wondering, like, how big of a star was he? I mean, The Incredible Hulk was a big deal. But I don't know, how it translates. Like, what would be because he's not winning Emmys or awards. But
I think we forget sometimes that if you had a TV show, there were only so many of those going on. You were the star of it. And I mean, I don't remember this goes back to a lot of these shows. I think that of this time that I'm starting to realize from the Love Boat, whereas I don't necessarily remember anything about Incredible Hulk in terms of specifics, right? But like it's him, it's him and then Lou Ferrigno, it's like, so there's not really much else. And it's him in the credits,
well, and the majority of that show is him.
Yeah.
Right. Like the tease was to like turn into the Hulk, like getting a glimpse of a monster in a horror movie was kind of a thing. And it was kind of like that. It's just interesting. It's interesting to me that this came out right before that, he became a big deal.
I think it's funny that his character was named Ballard and then he was Bruce Banner, David Banner. Yeah. His name was Bixby.
He loves the bees. Maybe it's in his contract.
It reminds me of my favorite joke from the commercials for those old Dean Martin roasts. And it was a roast of Johnny Carson. And Bob Newhart gets up and he does a bit where Johnny's first wife was named Joan. His second wife was named Joanne. His third wife was named Joanna. This guy just doesn't want to buy new towels.
That's funny. That's funny.
Milton Berle, who arguably is probably the most famous person that's been on this thing so far.
How old would you say he is?
So I looked it up because of the end.
Yeah.
So Milton Berle is 69 at the time of this.
Oh, yeah. It makes sense, especially in the 70s to have.
Yeah. But Milton Berle had been essentially the first television star. He had that Texaco thing when it was, TV was new. It was like, you're the first TV star because you're the only person that's ever been on somebody's television. So he's a massive star and he had already done movies and stuff like that. Like a lot of these people, he ends up, being in a ton of just random one-off appearances. His last ever credit on IMDb, he was in a Kenan and Kel.
Really?
Yeah, which is
unexpected.
Yeah.
Well, I figure with him, you think about it, right? It's got to be easy paycheck.
Oh,
you know what I mean? You show up, maybe you learn lines, maybe you read lines.
I mean, he did not do a lot of work. He did not do a lot of work in this episode.
No, he wasn't like, it was him. It was Milton Berle playing Milton Berle, which is fine.
Yeah.
But he's earned that though. Like I wouldn't give him any crap.
Get used to it though, because he'll be back. He ends up in 6 Love Boats.
Really?
Yeah. So we'll see him.
6 different characters, I wonder.
I believe it's 6 different characters.
Or is it 6 more visits from the prankster? Like,
if Cyril Wolf shows up again, I'm jumping off the boat. Audra Lindley is our 3rd
love her.
Three's Company person already.
We've 4 episodes.
4 episodes.
Where's Larry?
And interesting, because I think we've kind of talked around it. Three's Company was an established show by October of 77, but not for a long time. That show actually started in the spring of 77. Right. So it's like that thing was such a phenomena that they were just, I guess, just dropping these people in, that we've already had 3. So do you think we get DeWitt first? Do you think we get Mr. Roper first? Or do you think we get Larry Dallas first? Who's next, do you think?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's got to be Joyce DeWitt.
I think so. I almost feel like Norman Fell won't do it.
I'll tell you what, I could see Don Knotts doing it before Norman Fell.
Oh, definitely.
You know what I mean?
I feel like Don Knotts gets a 2-parter or something.
Yeah.
Don Knotts will crush.
He would crush on this thing.
Yes.
He would crush. Great. I would rather see him as the part of April Lopez. You know what I mean? Like, let him play the Charo bit. But yeah, I bet you that is. I don't know. I'm curious to see. So
Larry probably doesn't get on until very late because that's deep on the Three's Company.
Well, I wonder if they put Chrissy's replacement on Three's Company. Like when she, you know what I mean? Like, definitely. I wonder if they do that. I don't know.
I bet both of them. I bet you.
Maybe.
Yeah, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if Suzanne Summers shows up a lot more, but I guarantee you her replacements show up.
Yeah. Well,
they feel like people I think were on Love Boat. Kind of secondary.
I agree. Because the thing is, you could throw them in any different role.
Right.
I think the only challenge is the John Ritter, because it's like, it's not a guest, it's John Ritter as far as we're concerned because of the history. So it is weird that you have 3 ABC sitcom stars, you know what I mean? In the first 4 episodes, they really work.
You wonder, I'm sure we could find it, but like, when are they taping these? How far out are these getting taped? Is it literally like this phenomena of Three's Company airs for 6 episodes in the spring, and it's like, book them all, you know?
I mean, it's not a bad strategy. You know what I mean? You think about what you pay for publicity, or like, you know, to get a spot on the Tonight Show, or like back then, Mike Douglas or Merv Griffin, just something as like a vehicle for promotion. But what's better for promotion than, you know, John Ritter in drag, you know what I mean? Or Suzanne Summers, like any of these things are great springboards.
Well, it's that thing we talk about it, but we guarantee you if you pull a commercial from that time, and it's probably like, coming up, Three's Companies, John Ritter takes sale. You know, it's like one of those things.
Yeah. I miss those promos. Yeah.
So Mrs. Roper shows up in 8 Love Boats. So we're getting into the people that they clearly like and bring back.
I mean, she's Love Boat royalty, I would imagine. I mean, we haven't heard anybody in that many episodes aside from crew members.
Until Charo.
Well, she's a crew member.
She's a recurring character. April Lopez is an actual recurring character who appears in 10 Love Boats.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
April Lopez.
Okay, I like that. That. That makes me happy that there's some like continuity.
And I don't like looking too far ahead. I like to go in fresh, but it does look like it's basically 1 a year, which makes sense. And I feel like Charo is the perfect person for when you have a light week and you need somebody to chew up.
Yeah. You know,
like her song is literally over 2 minutes of a network television show that only runs 50 minutes.
And that brings me to some questions that I had about this. Like, Charo was famous for what exactly?
You know what's funny? I didn't look too deep because I wasn't finding like an easy answer.
No,
like, she is an entertainer, but Charo feels like somebody, for people of our age, she was just around and she was always Charo. And she was Charo in everything. Matter of fact, I thought this was the best I've ever seen her in something, because it is usually just and But
there was some substance, but it is just because I'm looking, and then I go immediately, I think of like a Sofia Vergara, right, from Modern Family, and I'm like, okay, I see, but not really. Like, she's famous for her in a role. Like, Charo, I feel like was famous for being Charo. Like, we can call her April Lopez,
But in the 70s and early 80s, there were forums where you could do that. There were game shows. There were shows like this. Like, I know she was on Sesame Street a million, and the Muppet Show. Like, there were just so many things where you could look at all those people on like Match Game and stuff. You know, like Richard Dawson and Charles Nelson Riley and stuff like that. You know, actually, it's like
it's funny you bring up the Match Game, because I saw a 30 for 30 yesterday, and Brian Billick appeared on the Match Game in the 70s. Yeah, wow. As a former NFL or former quarterback and a future football coach. And Richard Dawson said to him,
Brian Billick's like 90 years old and he doesn't look 50. Like
he's got that dauber hair, which you don't really know how old somebody is. Richard Dawson told him, don't quit. You know, basically he didn't get any of the matches right. And he was just like, I don't think you're going to have a great career as a coach.
Wow.
You know, Richard Dawson.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
you better get yourself a really, really good defense.
Yeah. But it's interesting. It is, the Charo thing is interesting to me. Yeah. And you know what? I want to research more about her. If she's going to be on 10 more times, 10 more times.
Yeah, we got time. We'll have opportunity. Yeah. Like, it's all those people. Like I said, we'll see a lot of these people again in one form or fashion. All right, let's get on the boat. All right. So this one opens up with Cyril and Anita Wolf checking in with Julie, and immediately the pranks begin. We are right into it. Now, I hate this. I hate the whole storyline. It was pointless. It was a waste of Milton Berle. Unless Milton Berle was just like, this is all I'm doing. I'm just doing these pranks and that's it.
He's dialing it in like, nope.
Did he have a prank show coming up? Like, it was like... Yeah,
Milton Berle's like hidden camera prank show, something. Yeah.
So I listed all I wrote down all the pranks. Now, some were on screen and some were referenced.
Okay.
So just tell me what you think is like the best one, the worst one. Okay. So we have the fake hand. That's what starts off.
Well, that's kicking it off. Yeah.
Yeah. Which was a little confusing because Julie reacted in one way, but then it almost was like, originally I thought it was like goop but then she pulled the hand off. It wasn't a particularly good hand.
Yeah. Julie's not exactly a method actress. You know, she didn't really, yeah.
Then we go hand buzzer. It's when he nails the Reverend with the hand buzzer.
I mean, so that's a bold move to walk up to a man of God and like, ha.
But he can't help himself. Like, he can't help himself.
It's not his fault.
So this is the one that was off screen, and I believe this was at the captain's dinner. He had a dribble glass.
Oh, with the wine, the $500 bottle of wine.
Yeah. So there's your captain's dinner. Another fail.
If you ruin Steubing's short jacket, white. God, why wasn't that on camera? I wanted to see that. Like, Steubing would lose his mind.
Maybe they shot it. Maybe they only have the one jacket, so they can't ruin it.
They don't have a stunt jacket for him. Yeah.
Snakes in the drawer. I think that's what it was when she opens up the drawer.
It was a makeup. I think it was a makeup case, and the snakes came flying out. Yeah.
Yeah. It was $100 on the string, which was a weird scene. Okay, fine. Collapsing chair in the bedroom.
I would say that's a little dangerous. She was not a young woman, and he's like, "Don't sit there." And she, I mean, she could have hurt herself.
Absolutely. I mean, just the fact it's not your house, right? You don't know where everything is.
Oh, that guy doesn't give. Like, part of me thinks he's trying to hit her, like knock her off. Like, there's some sort of weird will going on. Maybe not. Maybe that's a bit far. But
it would make sense that she would have the money, because who's employing this guy? Unless he works at a novelty store, who is employing Cyril Wolf? He's awful.
You bring up a good point too, because like there's no idea how much one of these cruises are. And I say that because you get all different walks of life. You have the wife of that person, the director of a cruise line from part one, who's got crazy money. You got JJ Walker, who doesn't have money. You have all these different people. So there's no way to know. Like, maybe Milton Berle was this executive. Maybe he didn't have there was no, you know what I mean? As long as you brought something fancy to wear to the captain's dinner, you can basically get on the boat.
And as long as you pay ahead of time, which is the only thing they talk about, the payment so far, is that you have to pay ahead of time.
But they don't say a number. I'd love to know. You know what I mean? $600, $700.
Try and find when we have our first cruise person on, we should try and find out what a cruise of that ilk would have cost in the late 70s.
And then you have exchange rates too. Like, I just wonder, like, present day cost of a 1977 cruise to Mexico from LA.
And as we've said, it's a big ass boat. Like, it's such a big boat.
It is a big boat. So it's got maybe it's dirt cheap. There's so many seats. It's so cheap. Who knows?
They go kick me sign on the Reverend, which the Reverend's getting all like the classic the classic pranks. They're not trying anything too inventive on him.
No, when the wife saying like those classic lines, like, "Well, I never,"
Yeah,
which is such
I do declare.
Yeah,
she was a bit of a dower.
Yeah,
I'm not saying the Reverend has to have a party wife, but it's like, geez.
She was just trying to get like her, she was just trying to get her slogan over. You know what I mean? Like
she looked like the woman from that famous painting with the two old people.
She did. She was not. I don't know. Well, her name was Lynn Adams. I don't know who she is.
No,
but
no. Again,
apparently they weren't big stars if this was the role they got in this episode. But
and then the last prank we'll get to it is pretend drowning, which is like
I might have died.
I got some thoughts on that one. So the staircase is back after a 1 week absence.
I noticed that.
We're back to the staircase.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good because that does seem like a more normal meeting place than the craziness of being on the outside.
Yeah, that weird. Yeah, it felt right to be able to see the staircase again.
Yeah, it seems like a more controlled environment.
Absolutely.
So next scene, Gopher is wheeling around Maureen Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
She meets Captain Steubing for a drop of exposition. But long story short, Maureen Mitchell is a tennis player of some renown who has been injured. We don't know how. We don't know the extent of her injury. All we know is she's in a wheelchair, and she's played in Wimbledon last month.
It makes zero sense. Like, what sort of injury that you can't bring up would cause a tennis player who played in Wimbledon last month to lose the use of their legs? It's not football. It's not rugby. What happened?
Did she run into the chair?
And there was talk about like never walking again, all this stuff. It was like, what? Wouldn't you identify? Like, just say something like she broke her back in a car accident. Like, because we don't know if it happened on the court. Nobody knows anything.
Well, and the thing there are so many sports references in this thing, like 70s sports references, puns. There's so much of that to then just skip over any plausible reason why this woman can't walk. Who it looks like she played Wimbledon last month and got smoked, right? So did she get hurt in the match?
Yeah. Like you didn't just get you were
like.
But it's just, you're absolutely right. If you're going to validate or you're going to sort of like back up the story with the details of you were just in Wimbledon, I have this tournament, and this tournament, and nobody's going, hey, what the hell happened to you? Like, you were just in Wimbledon last month. Like, what happened? And she's like,
it's not, you don't have to get crazy detailed, right?
Like, was she shot? Was it like a Steffi Graf thing? Remember when that guy with the like, what happened? Tell us. This could be a potential security concern for future tournaments.
It's grass. Like, unless you land in the stands, like, you should be okay.
Maybe they have that whole thing. You have to wear white at Wimbledon. Maybe wearing too much white like knocks off her like equilibrium, and then she fell into a random attacker and
some strawberries and champagne.
It doesn't make any sense. And for it to
be
this serious
to give us something was frustrating.
Bunch of crap, man. Just name it. Just name the injury, because the whole time I couldn't stop thinking, like, what the hell happened to this lady in tennis?
Well, and the other problem is too, this woman who has a debilitating, life-altering injury is getting the same treatment as the guy who twisted his knee.
I got a lot for that one too. Like, I'm not a doctor, obviously, but come on, neither is Adam Bricker. So it's funny, if she has such a bad injury. And she's kind of telling Gopher, go faster. And like, well, isn't this how we got into this problem to begin with?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know, though.
Yeah, but then she pulled like a mango. So it was Gopher's pushing her. And then, Gopher goes to push her again after she meets the captain. And Gopher's like, I'll push you. And she's like, Gopher, I'll take it from here. And we're like, yeah. What happened? You just were not independent at all. You want me to push you faster and faster. And now you're like,
well, the only thing is,
touch me.
She needed Gopher and all those crew members to get up the 3 steps into the boat. But as we've established, there's an elevator. So she really is fine now.
That's so he's just getting in the, you don't think there's an elevator to get there, or a ramp? Oh, imagine wheeling up a ramp though. That'd be something.
70s ramps. I don't know.
Well, she is a tennis star. They use their arms. You know what I mean? Like, if anything, why don't you use this opportunity to build up some upper body strength?
Again, we don't know what
happened to her.
We don't know anything.
It could be, you know what I mean? Like it could be like the Will Ferrell injury. You know what I mean? When he thought he lost use of his legs, and they were like, "You better not stab yourself in the leg, Ricky Bobby." You know what I mean? It could be the similar thing. Don't you stab yourself in the leg, Maureen Mitchell. Don't do it. Weird.
So the first of many, many, many sports references is the Wimbledon last month, Indy 500 today. There are just so many. And listen, I enjoy a good sports reference, but some of these are really just like, this is like talking to your aunt who knows you like sports and she tries to relate to you. There's just a lot of that. But
well, plus, like, if say he's a sports writer, right? I don't know how that works, but I would assume that you would follow a certain sport or maybe a certain team. Like, are there sports writers where it's just like, what do you cover? And he goes, sports. I cover every sporting event.
So the way it used to work, newspapers are not what they used to be, but you would start on the beat of something and then you become a general columnist, which is what I think he is. I think he's a Mike Lupica-esque.
Like a Colin Cowherd kind of guy?
Like just taking shots.
Hot takes.
Taking shots, not mentioning.
Not Skip Bayless? Like a Skip Bayless kind of character?
I mean, Skip Bayless used to be a writer. So yeah, I guess it's possibly like a Skip Bayless.
Ripped her.
Here's the thing.
The article. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see the article because there's two major ethical dilemmas here. One,
right there with you.
You are writing about your ex-girlfriend. Now, I seriously doubt this is something that is known in the media. It's like it's the 70s. There's not the internet. He's probably not starting his column with Maureen Mitchell, my ex
lady.
Playing sucks.
My former lady. Yeah, she stinks.
Like,
she's the pits.
Second of all, man, nobody is taking shots at tennis players in the 70s like that. They're just not. No. Third, she's been injured to the point of being confined to a wheelchair.
She lost the use of her legs.
She won a game off somebody. It's a heroic effort. Weird.
Well, it's funny because they never mention her like winning anything, right? They just mention the tournament she's going to be in and like the score of the Wimbledon. So let's just suspend disbelief for a second, right? Let's just say she sucks. Like she's able to qualify and then loses in the first round of every tournament. And this jackass is like, Maureen Mitchell, 40 love, 40-15.
And
you're the pits.
Like, the editor's like, why are you dedicating a whole column to this?
Why are you even writing about her? You know what I mean? It's not Chris Everett. Like, what are you doing?
She's like 140th in the world or something like that.
He just follows everything she does and just rips her in printed form.
That's
just
great.
To be a jerk.
It is true though. They never mention. I mean, Stubing kind of says she's great, but like, is she just great on the boat? Great. Like if you met
she's the best tennis player she's the best tennis player on the boat.
If you meet a professional athlete, they are by far the best whatever you've met.
Yeah, yeah. So like even a guy on the bench in the NBA would just destroy me. It's that kind of thing.
Right.
But
exactly.
You know what I would do? I'd hand her a racket and be like, let's go. Drag your legs that don't work on the court. Service. You know what I mean? This is my chance. And then forever I could be like, I beat a former Wimbledon tennis player.
You think there's a court on the boat? It's a big boat.
I mean, there's a skeet shooting range. You know what I mean? It
wasn't a range, though. He was just firing off the side.
It was a gun and plates. You know what I mean? It wasn't a... Well, they think they had a proper launcher. Yeah, why not?
I thought the guy was just launching them.
Well, you have a thing. Oh, you mean like he was just throwing them?
I thought he was just throwing them like plates.
See, I thought you had a thing and you put it in.
No, I think in proper skeet shooting you do, but I don't know that guy was doing that. Yeah, I'm not going back.
Regular. You want to go back?
I'm not going backwards.
I just thought about it. I don't think you can have a tennis court on a boat. Like, what are the boats? How are you supposed to? That's like having a playing pool on a boat. I don't think
Federer played on a roof one time.
Yeah, but like if the boat's moving,
but by that logic, you can't have anything on a boat.
Well, they have those basketball games on those aircraft carriers.
That's
I don't know how that works.
Oh, they're always terrible. And the Globetrotters are going to show up at some point.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait.
So we always highlight the wave goodbye shots. This was by far the weirdest one. So Bixby gets what is basically his own tight shot.
Very tight shot.
Of waving with these like 2 or 3 randos behind him. Like, I don't know if that was like we have to establish why he's on the that he's on the boat. Like
it's like we need to get more FaceTime because it really was a pointless shot. It was like he's going to be in the entire episode.
Right.
But it was like that was his
introduction.
Creepy looking side of the boat. Like we don't even know who this person is. It's just weird. It's just weird.
It was bizarre. And I can just see them shooting it in like the smallest set you've ever seen.
Because they clearly in so much. Like, we get it. Because I think it'd be more effective for him to be amongst the crowd. You know what I mean? Instead of
every other one we've seen has been like that.
Except for the one with Jacqueline Smith. Remember that creepy dude watching?
But they were in a crowd. He was set back to the side. Like there were probably 10, 12 people in that. That's the weird thing is that this clearly was a small.
Yeah, they didn't zoom like that. It was kind of weird.
It's almost like a post. They added it post for some reason. Like we need more Bixby. We need more Bixby FaceTime.
Something. Give me a thumbnail.
So after that weird scene, we smash cut right to the hallway. And Marine's zipping down the hallway. She's getting around pretty good considering she's only been in the wheelchair for a short period of time. She's become one with the chair, which is excellent. Bixby looks like me, like just no visual at all. Just comes around the corner and just smashes
slams right into her.
Like, I mean, why are you taking the corner so hard? Like,
why are you hugging the corner? Like, what
boat? We just talked about it. Sometimes it moves around. You should not be flying by like that.
Relax. You don't have to hug corners. You're not driving a motorcycle, Bill Bixby. Just walk.
I guess luckily he knows them because I'd be really pissed if you were a stranger and you just clipped me.
Maybe that's how he injured his knee, cutting corners.
I thought that. It's like, did he tear an ACL or something?
Well, it's too much. He's putting too much pressure on one tire. He's leaning into that turn too much. So
of course, they run into each other. And this allows for explanation. It's vague at first, but that they know each other. And he's a sports columnist who ripped her for losing 6-1, 6-0. No context as to why he ripped her beyond that. What'd he say? It was like, you're a loser or something like that. It was like really like insulting.
No, he said something about, he's like, you didn't have a bad day. And he said the score, and he was like, "That's the pits."
The pits. That's what.
Yeah.
Which great journalism there, guy.
Well, it's funny too because like he's a little upset that she's still harboring a grudge, right? Like, which is weird because you know what you wrote. Like, of course, it's not like he wasn't there when he wrote it, you know.
Right.
But the thing is that she says she only uses his column for wrapping fish. Zinger, take that, John Ballard.
There was a lot of like that. They got this week's Lockhorns, you know, at least early on.
Well, I like how he tried to like make it better too. Like he said that thing, and then he's like, "Get well, the game needs you." Like,
because what did he say? He said, "If she keeps playing like this at Wimbledon, she'll be finished." Basically,
yeah.
And it's like, man, she's in a wheelchair. You'd be like, again,
hey, maybe don't bring.
You should know.
How about don't bring tennis up? You know she's hurt. And you're going to tell her she was the pits? She was probably the pits because her back's all jacked up. Like they still, again, this would be the perfect time. This would be the perfect time.
Post-match presser?
Identify the injury here. If it wasn't for that blah, 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 I think you would have won it. Like there was an opportunity for him, like an entrance to identify the injury. But, 70s medicine, I don't even know how in depth they would get.
They could have just done like what, how Lost always is like the incident for a while until they figured out what it was. It was like, you could have just said, till the injury, like something like that. Could have said
strained back. Like
it doesn't have to be like Tracy Austin drop kicked you into a post.
No, you don't have, I don't need details. Just say she broke her back in a car accident or scuba diving or something, anything.
Yeah.
Just give me something.
Yeah. Not playing. See, now you're totally right. Now I'm playing would have made way more sense.
Well, because you get more of the sympathy from the sports writer. I need you back because I write about you. You know what I mean? It's like
it's the second biggest plot point of the whole show behind Charo, and they just ignore it. And then we'll get into it. But then in the operation being this cure all, it's like just give me a little bit. You're right. Off court accident would have been something simple,
right? They could have just called it the accident, just like you're saying. Like, oh, it was I don't get it. I don't get it. Why not go that extra step if you're a writer? Just identify. But
yeah, we had to get that extra shot of Bixby all close.
Yeah, thanks.
So next scene is Cyril and Mrs. Roper. They go back to the room after the captain's dinner, which they've ruined it. hijinks ensue. It's the first of what I think are like 3 attempted explanations by Milton Berle as to why he's this constant prankster, which is like, it's not alcohol, bub. Like,
no, he's just an a-hole. You know what I mean? He just wants to be a jerk.
Stop handing people cans of peanut brittle. It's not that hard. Like,
I'm just addicted. No, you're not. Just
that's
stop.
not addiction. You're an ass.
You're an ass. Quit being weird. What? And why would a guy like that go on a cruise? Is it just a boat full of potential victims for him?
Yeah, 100%. Oh my God, yeah. I would be on cruises, buses, trains. Like, that guy.
He couldn't help himself.
Yeah. But this is why you need background checks. Again, security, major problem.
We could eliminate this kind of prankish behavior.
Yeah, are you a prankster? No.
Well, he would have fit in perfectly for the Jim Wright group, the over 60s. Like, he could have fit into that.
So I was going to say that. Like, I don't want to come off as an ageist here, but so far, all the olds have been just portrayed in a terrible light.
Just a bunch of buzzkills, just making everyone's trip not as fun. Like, this sense of entitlement. Like, because I'm older, I can ruin your vacation.
And like you said, attacking a reverend. This guy, how often does a reverend get to go on a cruise? Also, 10 days on the cruise, right? So you're definitely missing one Sunday. Are you missing 2 Sundays?
Depending on what you are. Is he Catholic?
I assumed.
Because, I mean, that would be Friday nights, too. And don't they do a Wednesday special?
That's true.
So I don't know what.
And it's October. That doesn't mean anything.
How does that work, though? How do Catholic priests go on vacation? Because you're not really on vacation. Like, would you leave
backup reverends? I remember church, there was like a second guy that would show up and.
Well, if you're on vacation as a reverend.
It's like, I'm hosting this week because you were on vacation. So like, I'm the backup reverend.
Now, would you still be wearing... Here's what I'm saying, right? If I'm a reverend, I go on vacation.
Right.
Am I dressing like a reverend to go visit the Grand Canyon?
Do you think they do it for the perk? Do you think they do it for the perks?
The parking? Well, we've seen it. You don't have to be a great reverend to get a good parking spot outside the Love Boat.
It's like,
I don't know.
People aren't going to screw with you if you're a reverend. Now, this did not work out well for him, but it's like, do I get a free, meatball in the buffet line because I'm a reverend?
Well, I kind of equate it to a military uniform, right? We were always told before, like, look, when you're done with work, don't have your uniform on going out to eat, right? You're not there in an official capacity. There's no need to wear it. You know what I mean? You're not working, right? And, you don't want to go out to eat because then you're representing something bigger than yourself. And I would assume it's the same way with being a reverend, right?
Yeah, but God has got no breaks for God. That's 24/7. Well, you always got to be ready to witness. That's the thing. You always got to be ready to witness. Honestly, this guy, instead of the asinine get back they do at the end, he really should have sat him down and asked him to walk with the Lord, because that would have been a much better option than their wacky prank.
Well, plus he got pissed. I just don't think a reverend's going to be like, oh, we're going to get him back. We're going to say he died. You know what I mean? Like all these different things. It doesn't make sense to me. We're going to write a fake
suicide note.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. That was just
So now we get into the real stuff.
Here we go.
Maureen goes to visit Doc, and she gives him her medical charts, which her previous doctor, her orthopedic surgeon, insisted on. If you're going to go on this 10-day cruise, which, again, we always get into this, but it's like, you're injured. You're a tennis pro. It's the summer. If you just played Wimbledon last month,
it's August.
Wimbledon's going on now. There are tennis tournaments next week. So, like, did you quick schedule this cruise?
Well, what you said just kind of sparked something too. If I'm a professional athlete, right, man, woman, whatever, and I performed in, like, let's say I was just in the NBA finals, okay, and now a month later I'm on a cruise and my back is broken. Number one, why are you going on a cruise if your back is broken?
Well,
shouldn't you stay home and do some rehab?
You paid in advance. That's their savior for everything, is you paid in advance.
But how much could it cost?
Well, we don't know. We just talked about that.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Like, she's like, I know I have this potential career-ending back injury, but you know what? Let me go on a cruise for 10 days. Like, what are you going to do? You can't go anywhere. You're going to wheel yourself around the boat. How are you going to get in bed? How are you going to get out of bed? How are you going to shower? She needs a personal attendant.
But the problem is, too, the NBA example doesn't work because that's the off season. Tennis off season, if there is one, is like November, December.
That's true.
So She's missing like the Greater Hartford Open or something this week.
Well, what are her expectations for getting back? What's the healing time for a mysterious broken back?
Well, they always reference it where after the surgery, she's going to need some time to heal. So I get the impression
it's an undetermined amount of time. Like you're going to need 7 years.
Here's my guess. Here's my guess. Now they blow it up at the end because they mentioned Forest Hills, which is the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
So, she's not making it back to the U.S. Open. That's ridiculous. Like, especially because the surgery hasn't even happened yet. My guess is she's going to try and ramp up to get back for the Australian Open. So that's January.
I'll say this. There is some inconsistency here because this person has some sort of back injury. She's in a wheelchair, right? Seems like a wheelchair worthy injury. Well, Bill Bixby strains or sprains his knee. I think they said both things. I think I sprained my knee and I think I strained.
Doc diagnoses strain.
And he goes, let me tape that up for you. Doesn't grab tape, grabs an ace bandage and says the words, keep it straight. Okay. The next scene, he's in a wheelchair and his leg is bent at a 90-degree angle. And I'm like, what just happened?
Well, Doc diagnoses this thing in like 3 seconds. He rubs his knee.
Oh, that's clearly a muscle strain. Let me tape that up for you.
But so good call on the bend because I didn't even think about that. This boat doesn't have crutches. This boat doesn't have a cane.
Or a cane.
Like, I know it's a big boat, but like those hallways, we just saw some ass ran into a wheelchair. You have a prankster on the loose. Like this is
a stowaway.
Yeah. Come on, Steubing.
And that's just it too. It's like it's so important for the guests to be able to move freely about the cabin. You know what I mean? So we wouldn't want them to have crutches because it's much easier. Oh boy.
And here's the other thing we learned: Doc lives in the medical office, which
he never leaves.
So, but he literally lives there. His bed's in there. So it's a lot easier to put a crutch in a closet than a wheelchair. Yeah, I know they fold up, but that's still bulky.
Yeah, where are you keeping them? Stop.
And is that the only wheelchair? Like, how many wheelchairs are on a cruise ship?
Well, think about it. If they have a lot of people over the age of 60, as we saw, with last episode, I would think that you would have to have a few. God forbid somebody gets hurt or somebody passes out or.
Well, we've seen medical calamities so far. We've now seen a sprain or strained knee, which got a wheelchair. More treatment than 2 people jumping off the side of a boat got, which all they got was a blanket and some cocoa. It's inconsistent.
Well, I'll say this. This is a bit of an update from last week, and it sort of fits in right here. I got a message from Jamie, who was our guest last week, and he said a not-so-fun cruise ship fact. My friend's friend worked on a cruise ship, and he learned this fact last night, and he said, you might want to share this on the next episode. So apparently what he learned is when the staff is pushing ice cream on everyone, that means that someone died and they need to make room in the freezer. So let's keep an eye out for any sort of like ice cream pushing, like that sort of thing.
Oh no.
Well, I say somebody passed away. It's like,
I mean, it makes, well.
What are they going to drop them off in Mexico and be like,
I mean,
Mazel Tov or whatever?
Like, when you, maybe not. I guess if you
I don't know.
You got to think that the refrigeration system in that boat that size has to be pretty big. I mean, there's so much food.
Well, if you just look at technology, right? There are some questionable things in this episode that make me question that. Do I think that they could have a big freezer? I don't know. Because the things I'm seeing this episode, right, that didn't make sense were, why does Captain Steubing have a TV behind him in his office with an antenna? What are you watching? It's behind you. There's no cable. There's no satellite. What are you going to get TV station-wise in on antennas from
Mazatlan or whatever?
From Mexico. Yeah. Like, that didn't make any sense to me. Like, why do you have a TV?
Well, I still don't know why he has that nice an office.
He's never there.
Yeah,
he shouldn't be. Maybe the steering wheel's in there. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know.
I guess it's possible. I guess it's possible that you have it because, you're in Los Angeles to start and finish.
Okay.
Maybe you're catching the Dodgers or something.
UHF.
Like that.
Well, the other thing is how do they have phones? How is Doc's phone ringing? Like
I
I
mean,
could
you
see
have
if it was
phones on a
like
boat.
a kind of thing, but like he's picking it up like it's a regular phone. The phone's
That's an
ringing.
internal line, though.
No, he called his doctor friend who's doing the surgery. Remember
Oh,
the
that's
one?
right.
And I'm like,
That's
how the
right.
hell did you just call him? Or how did he call? How are you guys talking?
I mean, but
I mean, maybe there's something I'm just not aware of,
I just
but
feel like that's in this is a real boat thought all that stuff has to exist. Otherwise, none of it would exist. Like you have to have electricity. And if you have electricity,
yeah,
phone lines, all that stuff,
I would
right?
just think electricity. I'm with you because you can generate that. I don't know about the phone line thing. I think maybe you have like one of those
Like a CB radio.
something. I don't know. I just don't think like a standard phone with a cord that rings that was like a phone in our house growing up would. And again, I don't know.
In
It just seems odd to me.
So in Jaws, right?
Yeah.
When Mrs. Brody calls the boat right before the shark comes,
Mm,
does she call through a switchboard? Like she calls him, and then I think
that's a great
they
point.
blow her off. But anyway, that would be based more in reality boat technology than Love Boat would. So I
I mean,
assume
it didn't hang me up, but it was just kind of like,
no,
you know what
it's
I
good.
mean?
I mean, again, I feel like now that's an actual like boat construction. We're gonna need we're gonna need somebody who's been on a cruise.
Blueprints,
We're gonna need somebody who worked on a cruise, and we're gonna
boat
need somebody who
designer,
built a cruise ship.
and someone who knows the ins and outs of communication systems in the 70s.
All right, we gotta get a list going.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, finally we get to Charo. She shows up. She comes in hot. Ostensibly, she's selling some souvenirs for her 17 siblings. Gopher asks what her dad does, and that was only asked to set up the joke. And she says, I just told you, which is hilarious. That was actually a really good joke.
It was a great joke.
Yeah, Gopher is there to move plot and set up guest star jokes. It is,
and to leave his room.
That's what Purser means.
And to leave his room, his cool clubhouse room. Left
Doing,
it as
like he's friggin' Charlie Chaplin. That was like that was
a good physical comedy, sir.
So Gopher doesn't want to buy anything. No problem. I'm sure he gets solicited all the time. But he's like, "Yeah, get off this boat. We're about to ship out.
Yeah, we gotta go, girl.
You can't be on this boat." And then he just goes upstairs. So
yeah, I'm not going to force you. This is the honor system on this boat,
right? Charo clearly has scouted this out because she's like, "Okay, cool," and then she goes down the hallway. Walks into the room labeled housekeeping only, which I believe is also the women's bathroom from a couple weeks ago.
Well, yeah, you might find John Ritter's clothes in there.
Yeah, and the linen closet. That would be great if she'd worn John
Ritter's the same linen closet. Yeah, she comes out with a big red wig. Like, what?
So she hops in the laundry cart and she goes, "America, here we come." And that's how you end the first act. And that is a perfect button. And we finally have a stowaway. After all these weeks of debating why there are not just constant stowaways, we finally have one, and we're going to get to the bottom of all the preventative measures that Steubing and his crew take to not only keep stowaways off, but ensure that they are punished to the fullest extent of the law.
Stringent. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm looking forward to see all their security. I assume it's like some sort of post 9/11 airport security level increase after this first stowaway is ever.
Well, he's going to make a presentation. He's going to be like, "All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to continue to not check IDs or passports. As long as someone gives you a name and you can find it on the list, let them in. Yeah. But if their name's not on the list, like, it's so dumb."
So we get back from the commercial, and the pranksters are back again.
Oh, $100 bill.
This is the $100 bill one, so Julian Gopher see the money, and then Steubing steps on it.
They're just acting like rubes.
Yeah.
Like what are you guys doing? Getting on the floor and like.
So ultimately, Mrs. Roper's there, and she's like, "I'll show them," and I guess gives Steubing the 100, and he puts it in the Christmas fund.
His Christmas fund.
What's that?
Whatever. To buy new white and knee-length socks. That's what that is.
I'll tell you one thing. Bonnie Franklin's getting 40% of that, at least.
That's a good point.
So now we have Bixby's in the wheelchair, to your point, breaking all of Doc's medical advice.
And suddenly he has no idea how like a wheeled vehicle works.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't get this right. It's only 2 wheels, dude. It's real simple.
You got 4 options, really.
It's right, left. It's real easy.
Back, forth, right, left. Yeah.
Well, and she's like, "Oh, I see you're a righty." And he's like, "Oh, how did you know?" Like, come on.
Do you know? So they dated for 4 years.
Right.
How long were you dating your wife before you realized what hand she was? Like if I'd asked you,
It'd be a bit, I think. I think because it's not just like an opening, like, oh, where are you from? What handed are you? What is
But
your
is it
hand
the
orient?
fact that I believe both of our wives are lefties? And so that would be more unusual. But if you're a righty, it's like, yeah, no, you're all righties.
Yeah, I exactly. I think if you were a lefty,
yeah,
it would stick out.
so I'll give her the break on that
Fair
one.
enough. It's just
I
a
don't know if
weird
that meant that she
insight.
knew him
Like,
better than most.
well, no, but she's just like, there's two wheels, right? So it doesn't matter if you're a lefty or a righty because the wheels have to go at the same time. Like, what doesn't make it? Are you trying to go in circles? Because if so, just use your right hand. Made zero. They have zero awareness of how a wheelchair works or
Plus,
wheeled vehicles in general.
70s carpet in the hallway, right?
Yeah.
That's got to be tough.
Oh, shag. Like
That's
that
got to be
thick.
tough to roll
Like super
on.
thick. That'd be like when you used to try to use your Matchbox cars and that shag carpeting, and then like it would get caught in the wheel and like.
So we get a couple lame sports references. First of all, we get an AJ Foyt reference. I guess he was the guy. Mario Andretti would probably be the only other. Richard Petty. I'm just trying to think of who would have been like the universal.
Well, I wonder who won the Indy 500 that year. If you're coming from October.
Oh, that's a good point.
You know what I mean? What is that? July or
No, it's Memorial Day.
Memorial Day. So I bet you it's, you know what? And the Indy 500 traditionally is on ABC. So I wonder why if that is related to
this network is unparalleled.
It's all linked in together. It's very, very smart.
We also get Bixby saying when they're kind of scuffing at each other, let's call a timeout. And it's like, okay.
Oh, and she does the.
Yeah, we're just doing, this is like a Matt Christopher novel. Like everything is just some like really easy pun.
But why would she give him the time of the day? Like they had a relationship. He was a bit of a D by writing what he wrote, right? Or at least because there was a more than a morsel of meanness to it because there's, feelings involved. Why would she even give this dude the time of day? Like she was clearly pissed all of a sudden, like, well, now I'm in a wheelchair for really a flesh wound compared to your broken back. You know what? Let's just, it doesn't, they had to, but it's like, it just doesn't make sense.
I think part of it is what we always talk about. And we didn't really address this when we were trying to decide why she took the cruise, but it's like knowing one person at the party. Like you're going to talk to them at least to start. They're both apparently in that boat. They both came stag, right? Like, so, which again is weird.
Why would you go on unless you were just like looking for like on a singles cruise and looking for it. But it is kind of creepy to go by yourself on a 10-day love cruise.
I feel like now that we've addressed Stowaway, this is the next plot point that will come out of nowhere. It'll be a singles cruise or something because to go on a cruise by yourself, especially in a wheelchair, seems
with no help. Well, if you look at the history of the show we've had so far, how many people have been on the cruise by themselves? Like John Ritter, his cabin mate. She went by herself.
But she wasn't supposed to be by herself.
Right. But then she still went after it was broken up. So
but the lady, Jimmy Walker's girlfriend, went by herself. Suzanne Summers went by herself. No, she was on a mission. But no, it's been probably almost half.
It's just interesting because you would think in the framing of the Love Boat that like it would all be couples or prospective couples.
Well, but maybe three. It seems to be three, right? It's either you go by yourself looking, you go by yourself running from, or you're a married couple, or I guess the fourth one is you somehow know you end up getting together, but you're going by yourself in that theory. So
I just wonder if we're going to have a solo. Like, is it going to be a solo person every episode? I wonder if they do that one with every episode. And I say that because like Charo was a single, right?
Yeah.
And then the other one's just something I'm keeping an eye on just to see how that works.
Julie tries to get Steubing involved in the crew member talent show, which is pretty early to go to this. I'm sure they'll go back to it. But again, this all feels like they were just trying to get Charo in.
Crew night, yeah.
Steubing mentions he's no super pickle, which is this is the most dated episode in terms of references. This is all over the place. So now we get the housekeeper showing up to Steubing's room. Charo got seasick, so you can hear her kind of moaning underneath the sheets. And her cover is blown. And like I said, the housekeeper is Green Acres actress Mary Grace Canfield, who appeared in 41 episodes as Ralph Monroe the Carpenter. I've never seen any Green Acres episodes. I have no
Me
idea.
neither. I know the theme song,
I know
but
the song. That's it.
well, I wonder, like, so on the show, I looked at her name tag, and her name is Tony, and I just wonder because we've talked about previous episodes where it's like, well, where are the rest of the crew members? You know?
Yeah.
So I didn't know. I'm just going to keep an eye out for this Tony, the cleaning lady, coming up in any upcoming.
Oh, you
episode.
think every cleaning lady is Tony, but it's always different character?
I mean, it'd
like
be
Murphy
pretty
Brown's
cool.
secretary?
Well, it'd be if you put different, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I'm always curious when you get to meet another crew member. She wasn't introduced, but she had a name tag. That's good enough for me.
So Steubing tells Charo that she has to be left off at the next stop, and Charo's like, "Perfect, America. My plan has worked. No problems." And Steubing's like, "No. It's actually Mazatlan or Mazatlan. I don't know how to pronounce it. It took me a while to learn how to spell it. But would you like some fun facts about Mazatlan?
Always.
Mazatlan means place of deer, like
Place
deer
of
the
deer.
animal, not deer like Dear John.
Okay.
It's known for its beaches and its beach resorts, obviously.
Right.
That's why it's on a cruise thing. Tourism and fishing are the main industries. And some of the famous people from there include former White Sox and Royals 70s hitter George Orta and current Astros pitcher Jose Urquidy, who actually pitched mop-up in Game 3 of the 2022 World Series,
I do remember
which, as we all know, was the last game of the 22 World Series, and nothing else happened after that.
Hashtag thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Yeah.
Steubing tells Gopher to take April to dock for some reason.
Oh, it's a brilliant move. Brilliant.
So ultimately, it made sense because she was seasick, but then he ends up telling Doc that he has to house her, which is an odd choice because, again, as we learned last week with Jim Wright and Julie, it's a massive boat. There's got to be an extra room, right? There's got to be like a room you show. Like, what happens if my room has a leak or something? You have to have extra rooms.
It is funny because what I was thinking was, okay, let's say somebody gets on a fight, right, on the cruise. A law is broken. Much like a stowaway, a law is broken.
Sure.
Is there no brig on this boat? Because if Doc's office is you have to be more prepared.
That's a good point. There has to be, right? Like if Robert Reed last week shoots Loretta Swit.
Right. He's going to the brig. He's not going to Doc's office for 10 days.
Or, you know what? Are they clearing out ice cream?
That's a good point. That's a good point. No skeet shooting in this episode.
So Doc gives April pills, which
they look like.
What
are these? Oh, they look like.
Which is actually the right treatment, I think.
Yeah, I guess.
And then Gopher tells him that he's got to put her up in the room, which, again, Doc lives in his office.
You mean Adam Bricker?
Adam Bricker. So I guess it makes sense that you would have your sleeping quarters next to the medical if you're the doctor, but why?
It's not like when I go see my doctor, right? I don't go to the doctor's office and they call him from the apartment above and go, "Hey,
well, that's how Cosby
patients are here." So
Cosby was like that though, and
that's true.
Jason Seaver had his.
That is true. His counseling,
but they were upstairs. This is literally like right
it's
next
in the
door.
same. It's in two different. It doesn't make any sense.
No,
he's a doctor. It's again, if we're using this logic, then the captain should have a steering wheel in his cabin. Like if we're really keeping it real. If we're, it just doesn't make sense to me.
But I think we're starting to get there though. So because the housekeeper changed Steubing's bedding in the office, he sleeps there. We've seen Julie's room. We've seen Gopher's room, but they don't have jobs that you can do, like that. They don't need an office. No. We've seen Dr. Bricker's room. So does Isaac have a bed?
Isaac sleeps under the bar, basically. He just pops up when someone needs a drink. Oh, I'm Isaac. How you guys doing?
Exactly.
Sleep in his eye. Oh, it looks like the Sandman visited you. Yeah, he sleeps under the bar.
That's pretty good, though. We've already seen where everybody sleeps except Isaac so far. That's not bad.
Let me just say this, when you're speaking to Isaac, they haven't really done anything with him yet.
Next week.
Okay.
I haven't watched it yet, but I saw the summary, and I think it's finally an Isaac heavy.
Good.
So,
good.
Yeah, which you're right, because he again gets kind of shoehorned in to some of this week on a very crew heavy episode.
Well, don't forget Crew Night, his amazing performance.
So Crew Night, so stupid. So the pranksters are back. Milton Berle does. This is where he really does his whole Emmy Award activity speech, trying to say that he's addicted to pranks, and he's putting on these props while he's talking about it.
Or the flower petals.
Oh, just everything. And Mrs. Roper's like going to get a divorce. She's like, I'm sick of this. And this is where
his sophomoric nonsense.
He tells her don't sit there, and she sits and probably like breaks a hip, which at her age is just devastating. Like, so.
Well, she did yell.
And they're out of wheelchairs. On the
they're out of wheelchairs. They can't. Don't strain or sprain your knee. Well, she screamed, like she flails about and shrieks, "I want a divorce!" And he like tries to help her up, but the end of the scene, she's still stuck in the chair. As far, I don't know. We don't know how long she was stuck there, but he was not even trying to help her.
And these pranks go from elaborate like this, like how much time do you have by yourself that you can set up this whole fake chair?
Yeah, but he's going out of his
your hat out
to be a jerk. This is the woman that you know what I mean? You have vows with this woman. You're such a jerk, sir. She's older. You're going to hurt her. Like, what are you trying to do?
This guy should be in the brig.
Oh, man. You know what? This would be perfect to be like, you've gone too far. Add a little comedy. He could tie his belt together and his socks, and he could get the care something. Do something.
Back to the Bixby's. They're at dinner discussing their upcoming surgery and the former romance. So you're getting a little exposition here. Basically, the long story short was they're too busy, which does make sense.
Well, they were laser focused on their careers, Mike.
Well, and I mean, listen, tennis player and a sports columnist, that is something where you're going to have a lot of travel. Now, apparently, tennis back in the old day, you could just take off for 10 days in the middle of the summer tour, but still, they're very busy.
Well, also back then, I guess tennis players ran the risk of breaking their back somehow when playing Wimbledon. I don't know how this works. It's the grass. I still would love an explanation. It's just the further we go, the angrier I'm getting that they won't give us an explanation.
Stubing shows up because he's got nothing better to do than to just like third wheel at people's dates. Shows up with Julie.
He's such a busybody.
And then Julie's like, no, get. And also, Stubing's like, oh, I'm sorry to hear about your knee. It's like, what, is Doc like giving him a report?
Every day there's a clipboard of goings on this boat. Because the thing is, remember he said in the other episodes, I make it a point to learn everyone's name and face on this ship. And I've never seen. I'm like, no, you don't.
Here's what I need you to learn: where the icebergs are, and whatever port we're heading into. That's all you need to know.
The only thing I want to know is where's the steering wheel? Just show us the steering wheel. You don't have to steer it. Just show us that it exists. Like is there a throttle?
Nothing. I like that it's in his bed. It's like a race car bed, but
it's like this boat is on like it's a small world on rails. That's just like auto go. It doesn't make any sense, and it goes backwards back because it can't turn it around. It just doesn't make any sense. All right.
Before we leave dinner, there were a bunch more sports references.
Mm-hmm.
March. This is why they're too busy. March, Virginia Slims. Sure. Which was a huge...
Not March Madness. Why would you say March? But anyway, yeah.
But she said Virginia Slims.
Right.
Then April is baseball season opening, which he's covering. Then it's Davis Cup in May, which Davis Cup was a much bigger deal back then, so understandable. And then June, Wimbledon. They both say Wimbledon. That's the third Wimbledon reference already.
I wonder if it was on ABC.
Perhaps. I just think it's nice that we're doing this literally during the Wimbledon final.
That is true. That is true.
I broke out my Prism shirt.
I was going to mention that.
This is the most 70s sports we're ever going to have on the show.
Something caught me on this too, and it was when he said, "Oh, baseball," right? And maybe it's just me, but that is such a broad term that he's working on. Like, oh, you're going to be working on what? Baseball, not a team. Like, don't you have to go to a specific place? Because he said he's going to be busy covering what? Baseball. It's like saying, like, what do you? I'm going to be covering sports, fall sports, like not a team. You're just covering baseball in general.
I mean, there's two teams in Los Angeles. I assume that, it's inferred that he's going to see the Dodgers or the Angels.
Well, back then there was only one team in Los Angeles.
Well, no, they were always in the same spot.
Anaheim.
They changed the name, whatever.
Diamond Bar, if you really want to get crazy.
I don't think he's like going to the sandlots of, Omaha to watch AAU baseball.
Some pickup baseball league in, Lenexa, Kansas. Yeah.
So they're having dinner. They're getting back together. Clearly it's all working out.
Sure.
Smash cut. Isaac is trying to get out of this talent show, which is weird because it's Isaac's only thing to do this week. He doesn't make any drinks, I don't think.
Like, you should be happy.
So he should be ecstatic. And like I said earlier, Julie's got a different outfit for every scene this week. And she's a real busybody. with this whole crew night thing, which somehow we managed to get through the first 3 boats without any crew night. But this is very important. Maybe they're trying to boost morale because of the Stowaway and Milton Berle.
Maybe. I do have a question for you. And you brought up Julie, and I have a note here because in the beginning of the show, they introduced the cast.
Yeah.
And normally, like the last person introduced when they hit him with the "and," you know what I mean? It's her.
Yeah.
Was she considered to be a big star or an upcoming star? Because I feel like it's almost top billing if you do that, like and featuring or and.
Is it alphabetical? Because her last name's W.
I have to look again.
I wonder if it's alphabetical.
I know the captain's first.
Yeah, and that's because he's the biggest star. But I wonder if the rest of the people are alphabetical.
I just wonder, the word "and" always gives it a little extra.
No, you're right. But she also, I think, gets the longest screen time because they really have to stretch that out when it's like a short cast or whatever.
Maybe they were trying to build her.
I will say this, and it's not really necessarily related to this episode. I just think over the course of it so far, I think I'm really a big Julie person.
I agree. I'm the same way.
I think that's my favorite character as far as the crew.
I agree. Well, she does the most. She has the most interaction.
Yeah.
You know, even with the Jim Wright weird stuff, she's still my favorite so far.
All right. So Julie goes to Doc's cabin to check on the Stowaway, but things are actually not a Three's Company episode, which I think is what they wanted you to think.
Mm-hmm.
Doc is sleeping on his
exam table, right?
Right. And Charo's, in the bed. So everything's on the up and up. Charo wakes up in the middle of the night to talk to Doc about getting booted, and Doc gives her some, solid advice. We also get some sexy Doc, no shirt.
He's like, "Are you like that all the way down?" He's like, "No, you go a little lower and I bridge out at the legs." But I bet you she was wearing the PJ top and he was wearing the PJ bottom. And I'm telling you this because I remember this as a kid on Love Boat, because it used to baffle my mind that Doc was sharing a single pair of pajamas with a lady. I didn't know anything back then. I guarantee you something to watch out for.
What, do you have one pair of pajamas, Doc?
Look at his chest. He wanted to show off his, that hairy chest. I guarantee you.
I was surprised.
Something to watch for. The sharing of a single pair of PJs by Doc and his ladies
Did you ever
or lovers.
Think Doc would be I guess it makes sense. That Doc's the first guy to go shirtless out of the crew?
Yeah. I do. Because you can't do it with the captain.
Is Doc the first guy to go shirtless in general?
Wait, no. It was Gopher? Did the scene where Gopher...
he had like an undershirt
on. He had an undershirt on. Yeah, I think so.
Because Robert Reed was getting dressed last week. Wow.
Julie was in a bathing suit, but yeah, I haven't seen... Oh, no. Scott Baio was shirtless.
Was he? I thought he had like a swim outfit on.
Remember, he had the shirt with that little gold chain thing, and he kept staying underwater.
All right. Well, good for Doc.
Good for Doc.
Like I said, we've given Doc a lot of crap the first few weeks for being
deservedly so.
Absolutely.
Maybe we'll change our take on him.
This was his week to shine.
Right.
So
I'm looking for that heart of gold.
So so speaking of Doc, so Bixby comes back now to get his knee fixed, and everything's fine. I don't know how long that was. So Doc's cool.
From wheelchair to walking in less than 48 hours.
Right. So I guess that treatment really worked. And as he's walking out of the room, Maureen's orthopedist calls, and Doc is basically like, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." And Bixby infers correctly that the surgery is off, and he demands that Doc let him tell her the news. Doc defends HIPAA for a while before finally relenting.
Not long.
I mean, it was almost 3. It was almost 3 no's.
Yeah, but he's like, basically, he's like, I'm pretty sure that doctor-patient confidentiality is more of a guideline than a ruling principle. Like, it's like, what? Let me just say this, right? The fact he's doling out pills to the captain from his office. Let's paint a picture here, okay? Right? He likes him big. He's been married 4 times. His name is Adam Bricker. Just there's some weird things going on here. Like, he's breaking all the rules. I don't know who took his medical license away and why he has to perform medicine offshore.
Well, I did like that they mentioned that he went to school with that other doctor. I didn't say he graduated.
No. He's a quack. I mean, good on him.
He's like the Van Wilder of doctor medical school.
Yeah, I learned a lot in the 13 years I was there.
The interesting thing is Bixby's going to tell her, but has zero information. The only information he has is the surgery's not happening. Doesn't say why. I assume the doctor is not just punting you to the street. They're probably going to meet with you for other options. Like, is she still flying to Houston? Like, a lot of unanswered questions that he does not have because he was just eavesdropping on one end of a phone call.
Why would that doctor need to tell him that? She's going to see him when she gets off the boat.
She doesn't go to Houston, I think, ostensibly.
Yeah, but like that's the only way that doctor could get in touch with his patient, so much that he has to relay messages through a guy.
You pointed out phone technology on a boat might be very difficult.
That's true.
All right. So Charo in the scene prior had been exited off the boat by the entire crew, except maybe Steuben. The entire crew says goodbye. So we got 4 people at the port, which again would seem to be a busy time.
Yeah.
They all say goodbye to her. 0 people are at the door.
When she comes back in,
when she waltzes back in with
almost the same outfit, same guitar.
She kind of hides behind a flower. Like that's basically it.
Yeah, it just covered her head. They didn't recognize her walking down the hallway. Hey, there's that same outfit. Okay.
Or here's the thing, like be on the lookout for this stowaway. Even if you're going to be lax on the first time stowaway, be on the lookout for the second time repeat stowaway person.
0 concern about safety on this boat.
Not 0. It's not like she climbed the side of the hull or something.
No, it's just ridiculous.
She goes right back to Doc. Smart. Doc's like, he's not going to turn her in because, Doc's cool. And plus, he's at least like, not yet, creepy.
Well, remember, he was so happy to see her. Oh, April. Like he hadn't seen her in 2 hours.
He gets lonely out at sea.
That's true. Poor Mr. Brick. Poor Dr. Bricker.
I think I realize as we go through here, it's a lot. It's like 75% Bill Bixby.
This is huge.
Like most scenes, they got a lot of scenes.
Huge.
He goes to the room to to tell her the bad news, and instead ask her to marry him, which is a bit of a twist. Yeah. This is where they kind of hit the long pauses, which connotates love. But they accept, and then we get a Chrissy Everett reference. At the end, which I think is the only specific tennis person reference of the episode, but that makes sense because she's clearly she's the Babe Ruth at this point. Like everybody knows Chris Everett.
Oh, she's the GOAT. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this is the dumbest scene of the whole.
I know where we're going.
So the minister is on the deck with his wife. Mrs. Roper comes out, apologizes profusely for the husband. They have a kick me sign on the priest. Old school prank, hilarious. Milton Berle's up in the next level.
Just
checking it all out. And then after they kind of discover the kick me sign, he's got to step it up a notch.
It's not enough.
He throws his hat off the second level of a boat perfectly. Boat's moving,
like
right?
Frisbee. Yeah, no wind or anything.
No wind or anything. Then he manages to throw his voice in such a way to yell man overboard that the Reverend notices, but no one else does anything. We've now seen a man overboard scene. There's alarms and horns and everything.
We saw last episode. Yep.
Shouldn't this be, speaking of the bridge, shouldn't this be a crime? If you fake yelling man, isn't that like yelling fire in a theater? Like, isn't that?
I would think so, unless it's just the rules it was just loosey-goosey back then. Yeah. You know what I mean? It is odd. Well, number one, that a man in his mid-60s would have the strength in his wrist to whip a hat through the brisk at-sea winds and for it to land perfectly as though it... Come on.
Metzlana, or whatever that city is called, not known for their strong winds, I guess.
Or good swimmers with hats on. That's a normal thing.
Luckily, the Reverend and his wife are pretty wise to this, at least for a while. They're like, hang on, I know this guy's hat, which is weird. It's not that... distinguished.
Yeah, you don't even know each other that well, and I know that
because I think they just hate this guy. This guy is going to lose his faith because of Milton Berle. Then they're like, well, what if it actually is him? So they go. I guess they're gonna go notify somebody, but they run into Mrs. Roper, who's like, no, I'm not that lucky.
I'm sure of it.
Yeah, he's definitely not dead.
He's not dead.
And then they come up with this plan to teach him a lesson. Mm-hmm. Now the plan is that if he saw the error of his ways by repercussion, that he would somehow stop. So they
so dumb.
They write a suicide note.
Mm-hmm. They write a suicide
Milton Berle
note.
walks in and he sees a suicide note that Mrs. Roper wrote. Now he's all excited to tell her about the prank he just pulled. So this must be like within 10 minutes. Because this guy wants to, not only is he like pranking, he likes talking about his pranks.
Well, you can't write this note like 2 days later. You know what I mean? Like Milt's got to hide for a couple days. Like this is a quick acting. It's so quick.
It's terrible. So he reads the note that she's thrown herself into the water because she's so upset that he died. Watery grave, the whole nine.
Watery grave.
He's crushed for like 6 seconds. And these jackasses jump out of the closet.
Out of the bathroom. Like,
gotcha.
Haha.
That's it. So it was so quick. He didn't have any chance. Like, where's the scene where it's like he's anti-prank or he's just grieving?
Yeah, but wouldn't this sort of push him to do more pranks? Now he's like, oh, okay, this is what we do. How does this teach anybody a lesson? It's just you're doing the same thing he did. I think the only way to learn a lesson is if he really dies. Right. That's the only way we're going to learn anything here.
Well, they portray it like it's this come to Jesus moment.
Oh, it's a real Christmas Carol moment. Sure.
Crew shows up at Doc's office to get supplies for the crew night show and finds out that April's back. Gopher and Isaac are cool with not telling Steubing, but apparently Julie has to tell Steubing, which
she has to.
I guess as the cruise director, you have to. But she's got a plan, which always works.
It's funny how she like holds herself to this standard when it comes to April, but she's like meeting Jim Wright all over the place and going gaga and all these different things. But all of a sudden she's like, no. I have a code of honor to uphold. And
this was also, I think, them balancing first episode Steubing with the rest of the episode Steubing, where he is the boss. He is a stern taskmaster, but almost has like an Inspector Gadget quality to him that you can fool him pretty easily.
And a heart of gold.
Yeah. All right. So crew night, that's almost entertainment. And it starts off with Gopher and Isaac, where they have some big paper mache cowboy heads.
They draw heads on their stomachs.
Yeah, and it's a lot of midriff, and that's it. Like that's the act. And the audience, apparently, there's 18,000 people.
Oh,
in the
could not get enough of it.
Applause. Like there's
they just saw Elton John on stage. It's just amazing.
It is the most canned. It sounded like Superstars of Wrestling in like 1986. Like it was just like
canned crowd noise. Very weird.
Julie then shows up and she introduces Charo or April as Captain Steubing's discovery. And he's all like, oh, no.
No, you didn't, Julie.
And then she sings for over 2 minutes on a national television show that is only 50 minutes.
Did you see that?
It's good.
Did you see an electric guitar player keeping up with the... If you go back and watch that guy, he was going off. Yeah, it was a terrible song, by the way.
Steubing's just like a whore for compliments and adulation. So
you see his face change from Julie to like...
Yeah. So he's now
Latina superstar.
He's willingly taking part in this lie that he discovered poor April Lopez.
Well, I'm just glad he abandoned his sexual predator behavior. It took a couple episodes, but I feel like we got Captain Steubing back.
Yeah, it's been this many episodes since Captain Steubing was a leech.
Just a complete leech.
We go back to the deck. I think it was the normal deck, but it was like a different shot of the deck.
Yeah. I saw something weird in this shot.
Okay.
If you look in the background of the shot, there's a life preserver. Okay. And on that life preserver, it says at the top, Pacific Princess.
Right.
And on the bottom, it says London. Why would the Pacific Princess say London? It makes no sense.
Wow. Do you think it's like... I guess it's like wow, that's interesting. Yeah, you would never go to London if you're the Pacific Princess.
Why are we teasing?
Here are all the places we won't be going on this cruise.
Right. Like, why would it say London? It's
also Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. We will not be going to Kansas.
Oh, I didn't pick that up. That's pretty good. Yeah, that is not. You don't get a lot of London cruises, I'm guessing, especially on the Pacific.
Unless you go down the Thames or the Thames. Get with it, England.
Bixby goes to get her a brandy, which is way more impressive than her remembering which hand he is. You remember her drink order from 4 years ago.
Oh, God.
Anyway, Doc shows up. Classic misunderstanding. Mm-hmm. Doc's already on to the next one. That turns out there was a mix-up in the lab or something. Like, oh, I'm sorry, we mixed it up. You can have life-changing surgery. It's like that's a weird mix-up. Somebody needs to get fired. But of course, the problem is Doc is operating under the assumption that Bixby told Maureen what was happening, and he did not.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like humana. Doesn't ever let Doc off the hook.
Never,
right? Okay.
Never.
So Maureen waits till Bixby comes back, and then she tries to let him off the hook in terms of the marriage. But, love conquers all.
Love conquers all. No biggie.
She never really mentions the medical malpractice to Bixby.
Or the HIPAA violation.
I would be outraged by that. Yeah, or the HIPAA. There's a lot of concerns here in the profession. And again, as we've kind of talked about, zero specifics. We're pretty much done with their storyline.
Sure.
The opportunity to explain what has happened is gone. We never really will know what happened. And I've watched tennis for pretty much all my life, and I've never seen anyone have such a devastating injury to a not knee.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the Steffi Graf thing, which is such a weird thing that I don't know. That's odd. Okay.
We wrap up. This is the rare episode, I think, where we don't have a cab involved at the end.
That is interesting. First one.
The much changed Cyril Wolf comes downstairs. He's a changed man based on that 4-second suicide note. And
his son that's 58 years younger than him?
His son shows up.
Sure.
So
he's like 9 years old.
I didn't look up how old Mrs. Roper was, but assuming that's her child as well, like that is a medical miracle.
It's an adoption. Has to be. There's no way.
He offers to take a picture of his parents. Of course, it's a camera filled with water. Hilarity ensues. Just a complete waste of Milton Berle. That entire thing felt like we've had one almost since the first episode. We've had one every episode where it kind of feels like a waste, but this felt like the worst waste.
I agree. I just hope in his future appearances, he's a little more him.
Interesting enough, so I look at the episode guide on IMDb when I'm looking at this stuff, and they have the viewer ratings, which you can't always go by.
Right.
But of his episodes, this is the lowest rated, and they get progressively better. So
that makes me feel better. Okay.
Yeah. Bixby and Maureen are basically blowing off the crew about wedding invites. And we get more sports stuff. This is where she mentions Forest Hills, but they're off to get married. It's all good.
And that the entire crew is invited.
Yeah, good luck tracking us down. They never come back on the boat.
Yeah, so. Real generous. You're inviting 6 people.
Yeah,
it's great.
you think Tony the
cleaning lady got invited. Yeah.
And then we wrap up with April. And as we said, she ends up being a recurring character because instead of being punished, Steubing got her a job with the Princess Lines on a different boat because we're not getting Charo every week.
No.
As an entertainer, and she ends up being a recurring character, and she's in 9 more of these. So that's actually like a plot point moving forward.
I like that they've sort of planted a stake in a recurring character. Like I like that.
Yeah, it gives you more. I never said this last week when we were talking about Jim Wright being a possible future reference or whatever, but it's world building.
I agree. You're building that like mythology of characters.
And it's like, it's easy. It's easy world building. It gives you a little more investment.
Well, and it's not like she's got some super deep character. You know what I mean? But so you can build on it. You didn't really like pave, you know what I mean? You don't have like a road with all these character details, but I think it's great to build on.
And you know what? It gives you, when you're a little light on the script ideas that week,
throw
it gives you a third one real easy.
Can we get a Charo song, please?
Yeah. Like, can we just get Charo to do like crazy mix em ups for a couple minutes?
Can we get a Latino number? Yeah. Just bring it in.
I'll be interested to see if like all of her episodes are like her just carrying it, for most of it. Cause this was like the 6th episode in a row they were making or something, like
I'll be excited to see her another episode. I look forward to it.
I think she comes back next year.
Awesome.
Okay. So wrapping up with our usual segment, King of the Mountain. This was definitely not the best episode.
I gotta disagree.
Really?
I gotta disagree. And this is why. I felt like this episode had the feel of Love Boat. And I say that because the first one was a little more serious, right? With the ex-wife. This had this, like, you've got the Charo wackiness, right? You've got the Milton. I just felt like this hit the marks for me. The crew
was involved.
The crew was involved. You had that wacky Gopher Isaac thing. I just feel like they're starting to get a little.
I'm going to defer to you because I think your argument has swayed me. as I was watching it, the first time I watched it, I was very angry with it. I was like, this is nonsense. Doesn't make any sense. I will say it got better the second time. And I do agree with you that it probably is what we think Love Boat is. The only thing I'll say that it didn't have that I did like about last week was there wasn't that star doing something completely off character.
Yeah, I agree.
But again, you're not going to get everything. So you know what? I will agree with you, and we will carry episode 4 as the new champion moving forward to next week.
Fair enough.
We also got a suggestion from a friend of the show, Jim Prue, the other day that we should have an additional wrap-up topic, which does make sense for when we have guests on that have not watched every episode. And we're going to call this the Captain of the Week and Walk the Plank. So this is the best performance. It could be a character, it could be an actor, it could be a plot point. And then the worst, obviously, would be walking the plank. So, Captain of the Week, best performance. Who would you give that to?
Julie, hands down, Julie. And I say that she was in a bunch of different scenes. She was pretty consistent, except for crawling on her hands and knees for the $100 bill. If I had to give somebody the award, I'd give it to Julie, just based on consistency throughout the episode.
I'm going with Charo, just because, again, it was like I feel like they didn't necessarily have a lot this week, and she really ended up taking up a lot of space and was better than anything I've seen her in, or at least in my mind of what I thought Charo was. Like that first line delivery of America Here I Come, like that could have been really corny, and that was actually really good. Like I think she was really good in it. So I'll be curious to see as it gets on and her Charo-ness.
I hope they don't do like a caricature of the Charo character.
That's what I think it's what
I hope they stay true to her. Yeah.
Walk the plank. Worst thing from this week.
Anything in that Milton. I gotta say, I'm sorry, Milton Berle.
Yeah,
it's got to be you, buddy. I'm sorry.
I really hope he comes back in a better way because
it was beneath him. It was beneath
him, and the plot was lame, and really like half of those scenes were like 30 seconds.
He's a legend. He deserves better writing than
that's the thing. He's the biggest person that's been on this show. He should have been treated as such.
I totally agree.
But who knows? Maybe he was just a complete ass behind the scenes.
Could be.
Or maybe that's what he wanted to do. Again, I think it's possible.
I don't know.
He's got a prank show coming out in early 78.
I'm going to look at that. Yeah.
Or he's got a novelty store where he's selling
something.
Hamburgers.
Something happened in late 77, 78. I don't know. Who knows?
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up for episode 4. Was an interesting one to say the least. We'll be back next week. Like I said, a sneak peek. It appears to be Isaac heavy. So we'll get our first real crack at the bartender extraordinaire. Maybe we'll get to see where he lives.
God, I hope so.
If it is under the bar or not, under the liquor cabinet. I hope it's not in the freezer.
Well, we know what that means.
You want to plug all our little socials and stuff?
Sure. You can find us on Twitter at the Love Boat Project, on Gmail, loveboatproject@gmail.com, Facebook, Love Boat Project, YouTube, Love Boat Project. Come check us out.
Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next week.